Good morning. Welcome into the Commissioner's Corner here on Unforgettable 1220 and Classic Hits 99.7. Chris Roberts with you here this morning, as always, and with us in the studio today, Todd Wolfram, Van Wert County Commissioner, Sarah Smith, Van Wert County Economic Development, and from Ohio City, Mayor Carol Miller is here today. Also, Jeff Crew, and we're going to talk Ohio City and a few other things today.
Yep.
The shirt that you have on there, Todd, sort of reminds me a little bit of the Wizard of Oz, and I don't know why. Is it the dress that Dorothy wore, and that's kind of a gingham?
I don't think so, Chris. I don't know what you're talking about. This is a nice shirt, but
it is a nice shirt. I'm complimenting you on it. I have one at home that's gray and white, but you have the red and white, and it looks good.
I've been told it looks more like a picnic table.
Well, I didn't want to say that, but it does.
Yeah, but yep, styling today. Talking Ohio City today because they just won big money. $500,000 grant that our Economic Development Office helped them with.
Is that right, Sarah? You were in on this deal here?
Well, I didn't do a lot of the work. I can't take a lot of the credit. It was Ohio City. They did. We had our consultant, Ron Putoff, and then Moat and Associates, the engineering firm, helped write the grant. It's a OPWC small government grant that goes through actually the county engineer when you apply for it. And it's open every year. Middle Point actually won it 2 years ago and used it for their project. And now Ohio City's going to use it for a much needed retention pond and some drainage issues or water issues that they have. So
just to put everything in perspective here, though, Carol, how big is Ohio City population-wise?
We have about 730.
730, okay.
Yes.
So a $500,000 grant is quite a sizable amount of money
yes.
for a town of 730 people.
We're excited about it. We've had some water issues over the last few years, and we've brought in Moats and Associates to check out our water situation, what we could do to it, and that's when they suggested that we do a retention pond to help drain the city when we have heavy rains and things like this.
Nice. So the retention pond itself, I mean, is that, do you know where that's going to be built yet in your area?
It will be on the east end of town, and actually Raymond and Mary Louise, Eloise Steeman have agreed to sell us 9 acres of land.
That's is it going to be filled up most of the time, or just when you have the override?
It's a dry pond.
Oh, dry pond. Okay, I was going to say because it sounds like a picnic area to me. I'm a promoter, from way back. So if it was going to be filled with water, I would think, how are we going to get to that, and what's it going to look like? But that's going to do a lot of good for a lot of people in that area.
Oh yes, we've had when we get some heavy rains, we got some residents that their yards are filling up with water. They can't get away because the creeks are full. This way they'll be able to drain and go into the retention pond, and then when the creeks go down, they'll drain into it, and so hopefully make everybody happy.
How do you get, how are you made aware that you've gotten this grant once it's applied for? I mean, they just call you on the phone or send you a letter or something like that?
Actually, Moat and Associates called us. They had gone to the meeting.
Engineering firm.
Yes, and Ron Putoff, the consultant for the county, was there, and he made a call also and let us know that we were awarded the grant.
Nice.
And we brought in Ron Putoff. He had a lot of years' experience in, where was he, Sarah? Mercer County? Or
yeah, he was actually with Fanning and Howie before they were Access.
Okay, school builders, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And we did apply for Ohio City last year in a community development block grant for critical infrastructure for this same problem. It was a $300,000 grant that we were not awarded last year. And Ron had the suggestion that, well, if we go for this small government grant, apply for that, and we call it the grant train in the office. You get ahead of the grant train. Now we have this $500,000 to leverage with the critical infrastructure again, which goes in June, which is another $300,000. And we're hoping that the $500,000 with what Ohio City's able to put in for that grant will help us win another $300,000. So now you're talking about an $800,000 project you can do in this village for Ohio City. So that's kind of the whole idea behind it, and it's what we're doing with a lot of the villages, and we've got them in line, and it's a whole strategic plan. You go,
Sure.
And Ron Putoff actually helped us set that up and have that idea to which grant do you do now, and how does it help this grant, and how can you put the money together to do bigger projects for smaller towns.
You gotta love a system, especially when it works, huh?
When it works.
Well, then we didn't want our villages competing against each other, and it kind of lines everybody up and gets a better chance for everybody eventually than having two competing grants and nobody wins.
Sure.
And it's been kind of what Sarah's been devising with Ron to try to rebuild our county villages.
Well, I'm interested in talking about Ohio City for a lot of different reasons. I mean, this is a small community of under 800 people that seems to survive very well. People who live there love it. People move to it from other places. I've known people who have come to this area to work for companies here and have looked at Ohio City and said, "This is the place I want to be." And Todd, you've talked about the health of small towns, small communities, villages in the county, and how important it is to keep them doing well, and what it takes to keep them doing well. You know, it's nice if you have a bank. It's nice if you have other amenities.
Somewhere to eat.
Sure, yeah.
They don't have.
Well, they're doing something interesting now with your concerts in the park. Was that every other Friday?
It's one Friday a month.
Okay.
It's the second Friday of each month. And it's from 7 o'clock to 9, and it's held in Memory Park on the corner of Main and Carmaine.
But you know, you've got events, things at Ohio City that kind of gel people together. You know, you've got the
Lambert Days.
I was going to say the Lambert Days, the car, yeah, and those are the type of things that people rally around in small communities like that. You know, have you lived in Ohio City all your life, Carol? This is Mayor, by the way, for those who are just tuning in.
Yes.
Mayor
I've lived
Carol
there
Miller.
since I was 12.
Since you were 12, really? So you have lots and lots and lots of memories
Yes.
of Ohio City.
My family, my parents and grandparents were from Ohio City.
And no doubt, coming back home after you've been on vacation someplace or whatever, you see that water tower and you think, I'm home. You see
Yeah.
that water tower in the distance up 127 or whatever, huh?
Yeah, I love my little village. I
I know
really do.
Jeff's been there his whole life too, haven't you, Jeff?
Yes,
I
I have.
remember him playing for the Ohio City Liberty Warriors in their red and green. Was that the colors?
Yeah, red and green.
Red and green.
Red and
really?
green.
Christmas
back in the
colors.
day. Yeah.
Wow, how about
Back
that?
in the day.
Yeah. But what keeps you there? You know, what keeps you in that community? It's not easy to stay in a community that you love. Just because you love it doesn't mean that you can thrive there, that you can find work there, that you can raise your family there, or, unfortunately, as we find in a lot of our kids, you know, they want to move. They want to see those bright lights and they want to see those big cities for some reason. Not sure why, but that's what they want to do. How do you do that? How do you stay?
It's peaceful. It's quiet, trusting. You can trust your neighbors. For instance, when I sold my house in Ohio City, we had to hunt for keys. And I thought we didn't have to change the locks because we never locked our
Is that right?
house.
So nobody knew where the keys were.
So it's just, you know, very trusting community.
Yeah.
You know, and they do have a lot of support. They will back, you know, their neighbors. They'll help when people are in need.
You know, I've told this story, maybe not on this program, but I've told the story before. I grew up in Cleveland, and you know what we think now of big cities and cities like Cleveland and Detroit and so forth. You know, we're very nervous, you know, about being there. A lot of us are, and we used to think that about New York years ago. But as a 5-year-old kid, I used to ride the city bus to school. My mother would you know, hand me my lunch at 5 years old, and I would walk out the door and walk down to the end of the street, which was about a block and a half, stand there and wait for the Cleveland Transit System bus. Get on the bus. I knew the driver. His name was Frank, and Frank would say, "How you doing?" I'd say, "Fine." I'd put my 15 cents in the change thing, and he'd hand me a transfer, because then I had to transfer from the 79 to the 51, and then go on from there. Looking back at it now, they all looked out for me. But, you know, would I let my kid ride a city bus at the age of 5? In any city, doesn't matter where it was, I wouldn't let them do it here. You know, if we had a city bus. Things have changed. We left our doors unlocked even in Cleveland back in those days. I can also remember in those days going to an amusement park, and people's lunch baskets would be on picnic tables, their purses and everything else, because they would put that there. And they would claim that picnic table as theirs, and then they would go off and ride the rides. And all of their stuff was sitting there. And I can remember my grandmother moving somebody's picnic basket from the sun into the shade just so that it wouldn't overheat. It didn't know who it was. This is the way people used to be, is it not? Are they still like that in Ohio City?
Pretty much. I think they are.
Yeah. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah. And then we also have our baseball diamonds that in the summer attract people with the baseball, Little League and farm teams, and of course the T-ball and that. And last year was the first year we helped sponsor the Bachman tournament and that. And then we're lucky enough this year we're going to have them for part of their tournaments again this year.
So for people who think that big cities are nice for the anonymity, and I know a lot of people who do, you know, they just don't, nobody looks at anybody else in the, you know, big city. But in a small town where everybody knows each other, that's the attractiveness that you find to Ohio City.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody knows, huh?
Yeah, everybody basically knows each other, and you come out and support one another and that, especially our Lambert Days. We have a big turnout for that, and we've had fireworks the last 2 years, and they've really been spectacular.
Tell me about the Lambert family. Anybody still left in town from that?
No one actually in Ohio City. They're in Dayton, and I'm not sure where the rest of them are at right now. But we do get, the family comes every year, and they bring 2 of their cars. They put them in the parade. Usually we have to tow them. They aren't running. Some of them, they say they are, but they get
How
here.
many exist, actually? I mean, they can't be more than a handful.
I can't answer that. I'm not
Or
sure.
maybe a couple. Maybe the 2 that you get are the only ones.
And
that
they've
are left.
offered us if we could get a museum to allow us to put them in the museum.
Whoa.
So that was something we've been trying to put on the plate as well, to get us some type of museum for the Lambert car.
That'd be pretty slick.
It'd be nice if you turn that school
Yes, it
into a
would.
museum, but does that still have asbestos problems, normal stuff schools had?
The old Ohio
As far
City
as I
Liberty?
know, it does.
Yeah, that's the problem with all those old school buildings, that you can't do anything with them, because first you got to take all that asbestos out that we seem to survive going through school there. But
Well, I think once you move it, I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
You know, if it's intact, it may be okay. But yeah, these days, if you had that situation, every kid would be dressed in a moon suit.
oh yeah. Try to send a kid to one of those schools now.
Yeah.
Ohio
But
City also has the Rails to Trails project happening out there. Is that coming along? I mean,
Yeah, actually, we just put a sign up declaring it the Warrior Trail. And I believe, I haven't been to any of the meetings, but I believe they're saying they want to have it completed by August. And that'll be going from Liberty Union to 127. It'll be a paved bike path and walk path.
So Rails to Trails, obviously, the old railroad right away. Do they actually give that up to you folks, or
The
do you
Port
have to apply
Authority
for it, or what?
has leased it to the Van Wert Parks District. And they are going to, the Van Wert Park District's actually put a grant in. It's a $475,000 grant that they were awarded. And that's where they're going to start on this end, is over in Ohio City.
So it's going to go from where to where?
Liberty Union
Okay.
to 127.
Nice.
Eventually, they'd like to get it to go from Elgin to Glenmore, is my understanding on that.
and we're working on one from where to where, sir, on Lincoln Highway,
Convoy to Delphus.
Convoy to Delphus, all the way across the county,
Really?
on Lincoln Highway. But what needs to happen?
You need to
I
get
mean-
the trains off of it, right?
Well, this one's not a Rails to Trails. This is
Oh, is
just
that
the Clean Ohio Fund has
Yeah.
a bike path, or it's a recreational type thing. They're trying to encourage people to ride their bikes and walk versus driving and get kids outdoors instead of playing video games and that kind of stuff. So, but you've got so many properties along the way that you have to find out which side of the road to put it on and cross it. And
Sure.
so there's a lot of process that goes into it, but.
There are a lot of rail right-of-ways, though, in our area that aren't used anymore. I know that, if you look back at the Van Wert County Fair, for example, back into the 20s, 30s, and even into the 40s, I think, and maybe even into the 50s, a lot of people came to the fair by train. Back in the days when I think in the late 40s after World War II, I think the opening day had like 47,000 people show up.
We're working on getting back there.
Are you really?
Yeah.
You got to get that train back in.
Yeah.
Because the depot is still there, right?
It is. We are actually trying to work with the Historical Society to renovate that depot
Yeah.
and get it. Yep.
It's like the Cincinnati Railroad, I think. People listening in obviously know more about this than I do, but there was quite an influx of people that would come to Van Wert County for the day, using the rail to do that. But there's a north-south rail line also that I think has been abandoned, hasn't it? That runs through Ohio City.
Yeah, that's all been sold off to farmers.
Oh, has it? I
Yeah, they've
see.
all pretty much bought all that off.
Yeah, gotcha. All right.
And even where they used to be, I mean, the right of way for them, some of the farmers have kind of taken the stone and everything out and made it farmland. So you'll have a path of the railroad, then all of a sudden there'll be nothing there, and then the path of the railroad will resume down the line a little bit. So it's not all even intact still.
So what else is on the wish list for Ohio City? What is it that you would do if somebody said, "Okay, here's $1 million, spend it as you want"?
We would do a restaurant. We are desperately in need of a restaurant. We've had so many people say that, we need to get a restaurant in Ohio City. So that's our biggest goal is trying to find a place for a restaurant.
I mean, really, a nice sit-down home cooking type thing, or
Yes.
okay. Gosh, there's a real opportunity there for somebody listening in who would want to build a mom and pop type operation,
Yes.
but someone else who might have a different idea. Ohio City would be a great destination restaurant. It's a charming little community. It's the type of thing that brings people from bigger communities into smaller communities. There used to be a legendary restaurant at Red Key, Indiana, There was a guy there who would literally cook for a handful of people, and he was a flamboyant gentleman. And it was as much a show as it was anything else, and reservations had to be made 6 months out. That's how popular it was. We're talking Little Red Key, Indiana. You know, that type of thing, although on a larger scale, could, I think, make it in Ohio City. People love to, when they go out to eat, they love to go out to eat. They want to go someplace else other than where they live. How long has it been since you've had a restaurant there?
I want to say 8 years, 10 years.
Really, that long?
Yeah. Yeah, we have someone that's very interested in putting a restaurant in, but we can't find them any ground.
We're landlocked.
We're
They want to build a
landlocked.
building?
Yeah. Yes, they do.
And nothing else is available there? I
They would like to be on 118, which is understandable to be on the highway.
Sure.
But anybody that has ground available is not interested in giving up their farm ground to help us out.
I would think that would be an expensive proposition, though, to build from the ground up and then take a chance, you know, as opposed to taking something that's already there. You obviously have some rental spaces.
Yeah, we have some buildings down on Main Street, but they're in pretty rough shape. So building from the ground up is probably the best option.
After the big fire there many years ago, whatever happened to that?
Jones
area there?
Plumbing did rebuild.
Did
They
they?
rebuilt a building, and the building in between is gone. And but we did get a new building out of it.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Well, you know, that's
Ohio City has some of the only factories outside of Van Wert City too. Down there, you got it's Elkhart now. Used to be Almani.
Yeah, Elkhart and
And
Team Wholesale.
So you got people coming into work, and
Well, and
Yes.
the businesses have talked about how you want to take someone to lunch, or you have people coming
Yes.
in. It'd
Sure.
be nice to have a restaurant to go sit down at, and so there's definitely lots of opportunity.
So is there economic development grant money for a person to build a restaurant in there, do you think?
We'd have to probably spin it creatively.
Yeah, well, that's
restaurants
what you
are
guys do.
difficult. Yeah, retail is difficult, but securing the land and like Jeff mentioned, tying it with a museum, with a historical type approach, and putting the Lambert cars there. Or, they talked about rail,
Almost like a
doing
mini
something-
version of the Back 40 over at
Exactly,
Decatur. Yeah.
exactly. Something where it's not just the eatery, but it's got more to it. So.
Wow. Well, if there are enterprising people tuned in here that want to get involved, Sarah, if they contact you, you'll set them straight
That
on what's
sounds
going on
good
there,
to
huh?
me, yeah.
There's a need, and Americans jump in and fill it when they find out there is a need. So, best of luck with that. Carol Miller, Mayor of Ohio City, and Jeff Crew, and Sarah Smith, and Todd Wolfram, thanks. It's always fun talking with you, and especially about Ohio City. It's a community that the people who are there love, and obviously there are people, as I told you, I knew people who came in here from other cities and other states and looked at Ohio City and said, that's where I want to be. So you got it going on down there, evidently, huh?
Is there a
Sweet.
special Arts in the Park this month? Isn't there a second one coming up here?
Yeah, the May 22nd.
Cast Blue.
Cast
Cast
Blue.
Blue.
Cast is
May,
good,
twen-
yeah.
on May 22nd, though, so
Really?
people can come out and see Ohio City after
Yep.
they hear this on the radio.
Cass is fun.
Come
She's
check 'em out.
she can belt out a song.
Yes, you can.
All right, good enough. Thanks, folks. Chris Roberts here on the Commissioner's Corner on Unforgettable 1220 and Classic Hits 99.7.